You know that moment you're sitting across from someone, a business partner, a new hire, maybe someone you're dating, and everything on paper looks perfect. The numbers check out, the resume is impressive, the pitch is polished, and yet something in you goes, no. You can't explain it. You don't have data for it, and you override it. You tell yourself you're being irrational. You sign a contract, you say yes, you stay. And months later, maybe years later, you remember that moment, that quiet, certain, but almost imperceptible no. And you think, I knew. I already knew. Welcome back to the show. I'm Jasna, and today we're going deep on one of the most powerful and most dismissed tools that we have as women, our intuition. What it actually is, why we're wired to feel it so strongly, why it's absolutely non-negotiable in business and relationships, what the science says, and how to make it louder. So let's go. Let's start with what intuition is and what it is not, because so many of us have been told it's a feeling, or worse, just emotion. And that framing, I believe, has done a lot of damage. I came across the work of Gavin de Becker. He wrote The Gift of Fear, and one thing that he pointed out stopped me cold. The word intuition comes from Latin intuere, which means to guard and to protect. Let that settle in. Your intuition's entire job is to guard you. It's not being dramatic. It's not being difficult. It's literally doing its job. The Becker's central argument is that intuition always serves your interest, and it's never arbitrary. It's always responding to something real, even when you can't name what that something is yet. And that distinction changed how I think about every uneasy feeling that I've ever had. And I don't think it's magic. It's pattern recognition and a speed that your conscious mind cannot match. Your brain has been collecting data your entire life. Think about it. Every conversation, every betrayal, every red flag, every moment of safety. And your intuition is your brain synthesizing all of that in an instant and delivering you the conclusion before you've had time to think. Magnus Carlsen, widely considered the greatest chess player in the world, says something that really stuck with me. Listen to this. When asked if he runs on logic or intuition at the board, he said, well, my first thought is nearly always right. I spend the rest of the time just confirming what I already knew. That's not arrogance. That's a trained mind recognizing its own wisdom. And here's the key word, trained. We'll come back to that. Now let's talk about us women specifically, because I don't think it's a coincidence that women have been told for centuries that their intuition is just emotion. Simultaneously being true that our intuition tends to be more acute, more embodied, and more accurate than our counterparts. Research from Cambridge University found that women on average score significantly higher in empathy quotient tests, which are directly tied to the ability to read nonverbal cues, microexpressions, and emotional subtext. That is intuition in action. Every woman listening to this, I'm pretty sure, can identify. A 2016 study published in Psychological Science found that when shown photos of people's eyes alone, women significantly outperform men at identifying the emotions behind them, a skill at the heart of intuitive social intelligence. And biologically, women have a larger deep limbic system, the emotional processing system, and also more connections between the brain's hemispheres. We're literally wired to integrate emotional and rational information simultaneously. And that's not a weakness, that is a superpower. But here's the problem. We're raised in cultures and institutions, boardrooms, schools, families that prize logic over intuition. They value the spreadsheet over the gut check. So we learn to distrust what we feel. We learn to over-explain, over-justify, and ultimately override the most intelligent system in our body. I see this every day with the women I coach. They've been promoted because they're smart, analytical, achieved incredible things, but they've abandoned the very thing that makes them extraordinary leaders. Their ability to read a room, read a person, read a situation with breathtaking precision. We're training that out of ourselves, and it's costing us everything. Let me tell you what's actually happening in the most successful companies in the world. Jeff Bezos has talked about the role of intuition in his biggest decisions. Steve Jobs said that intuition is more powerful than intellect. And Sarah Blakely, I love her, founder of Spanx, she was the first female self-made billionaire. She's spoken openly about how she built her empire on gut feeling, not market research. And yet, women go into their board meetings and feel like they have to lead with data, with logic, with a PowerPoint that justifies the feeling that they already have. And what I want to say to you today is this: the data is the supporting character. Your intuition is the lead. There was a study by the Harvard Business Review, and they found that 90% of senior executives reported regularly using their gut instinct to make the important decisions in business. And those who combine intuition with data outperformed those who relied on data alone. Think about the hires that you've made, the ones that look perfect on paper but felt wrong from the start, the ones where something just nagged at you and you ignored it because they had the credentials. And you know how that ended. Now think about the person you hired that didn't tick every box, but you just knew, and they become one of the best people on your team. Intuition in business shows up as the partnership that feels off, even when the terms are good. The investor that you don't want in the room, even when the check or the money is attractive. Or the strategic pivot that everyone around you resists, but you feel bone deep is right. De Becker makes the observation that institutions would actually prefer you use logic and be wrong over using intuition and being right. That is crazy. The optics of logic comfort people, but outcomes are what matter. And when you bring your full intelligence to a decision and your intuition is part of your intelligence, you win more, you lose less, and you waste far less time. Here's the practice that I teach. Use data to inform. Use intuition to decide, not the other way around. Now, let's go somewhere a little bit more personal, because I believe this is where women lose the most by ignoring their intuition. De Becker's research included interviews with countless women who had been hurt in relationships, and almost without exception, they said the same thing. I knew. Early on, I knew. They had felt it in their body in a moment, in a quiet flash of discomfort. They just couldn't explain, but they knew. And they talked themselves out of it. That image has never left me, because I think most of us have our own version of that story, a relationship or partnership, a situation where the signal came early and we chose not to receive it. Your intuition isn't trying to make your life harder. It's trying to protect you from what's coming. I want to be clear that intuition in relationship isn't about being suspicious or closed off. It's also not about distrust. It's about being honest with yourself. It's about not making yourself comfortable with what is making you uncomfortable. How many of us have stayed in relationships, romantic, professional, even friendships, past the moment we knew? I know that I did. And that was because I didn't want to be rude. We didn't want to be rude because we were afraid of being wrong, because we didn't want to confront the reality that this person was not safe or good for us. Your discomfort is data. Your body registers things your mind hasn't consciously processed yet. When your stomach tightens around someone, when your shoulders creep up, when you feel smaller, duller, or even more guarded in someone's presence, that is not irrational, that's intelligence. And your nervous system has done a threat assessment and delivered the report. And your only job is to read it. And here's what I say to the women that I work with. Our goal is not to build a life free of difficult people or hard conversations. That's really important to mention. Our goal is to build a life where you're so deeply connected to your own inner knowing that you trust it even when it's inconvenient, and especially then. I want to give you some research to take back into the world, because I know some of you are going to share this with someone who will say, oh, but that's just a feeling. Here's your armor for that. One of the first studies I want to talk about is that researchers at the University of New South Wales found that people can use intuitive information processed below conscious awareness to make better decisions. Here's how they did it. Participants exposed to subliminal cues made more accurate choices than those relying on deliberate analysis alone. The unconscious mind is processing far more than we realize. Okay, you have to remember that. Study number 2 was about dodgeball. Professional players were shown a frozen frame of a game and given either a short or a long time to decide where to throw, right? You know that moment like, where do I go? The ones who decided quickly, with little time to rationalize, made the better throw. So more time led to worse decisions. And this effect, famously known as analysis paralysis, is well documented across domains from chess to emergency medicine. Act quicker, right? That goes back to your intuition. And another study, our third study, was a study published in Psychological Science, found that intuitive decision-making produces better results in complex situations with many variables. Precisely the kind of decisions that the leaders face every single day. Logic outperforms intuition in simple, rule-based decisions. But intuition outperforms logic in complex, high-stakes, and uncertain ones. You know, one when you don't know, but you just know. The fourth study was done by neuroscientist Antonio Damasio, who found that through work with patients who had damage to the emotional centers of their brain, that without access to emotion and body-based sensing, people became incapable of making good decisions, even when their logic was fully intact. And he calls that somatic marker hypothesis. Our body keeps the score and it factors into every choice that we make. So when someone tells you that your intuition is just a feeling, you can tell them it is the integrated output of your entire nervous system, including more data than your conscious mind will ever have access to. It is the most sophisticated decision-making tool that you own. So how do you actually develop this? Because intuition isn't just something that you have, it's something you can cultivate. And here's what I know works. First, you have to get quiet enough to hear it. That sounds simple, and it is the hardest thing. Intuition speaks in a whisper, and we live in a world engineered for noise. A daily practice of stillness, even 10 minutes, is not optional. Meditation, journaling, walking without your phone, create the conditions for the signal to reach you. Track your body, not your thoughts. Intuition lives in your body first. Start noticing, where do you feel expansion? Where do you feel contraction? When you have a choice in front of you, close your eyes and imagine what you've already said, yes to. What happens in your chest, right, in your throat? And then imagine if you said no, for example. The body knows before the mind does. Another thing you can do is keep a decision journal. Write down your intuitive hits, the thing you sensed before you could even explain them, and track what happened. You will be humbled and astonished at what you already knew. And this also rebuilds trust in yourself after being, told for years and years, decades, to override your gut. And then lastly, notice what dilutes it, whether it's chronic stress, sleep deprivation, spending time with people who constantly override your reality. These all dull the signal. You have to take care of your body and your energy. And that's, taking care of yourself is not indulgent, it's strategic. Get reps in lower stakes areas first. That's another thing that I really, really, really want to mention over and over again, right? Start small. Start in those small, little, insignificant areas. And just like the muscle, intuition gets stronger with use. Start trusting in small decisions. Where to sit, who to call, what to say yes to today, and then notice what happens. And the more you honor it in small ways, the louder it gets in the moments that matter most. Your goal is not to improve your intuition. Your intuition is already extraordinary. The goal is to stop prosecuting it, to stop requiring it to explain itself before you listen, to give it the respect it has always deserved. Here's what I want to leave you with today. You were not given a brain and a body. You were given a whole intelligence system. And the most powerful part of it is not your logic. It's your knowing, that quiet, certain, unshakable knowing that has been with you your entire life. The question has never been whether your intuition is right. The question is whether you're brave enough to trust it. So the next time it speaks, and it will, it always does, I want you to let it. Don't interrogate it. Don't make it justify itself. Just listen and then act, because she already knew. She has always known. And so do you. Thank you so much for being here. If this episode moved something in you, share it with a woman who needs to hear it. And I will see you next time.